I'll be talking about the workability and disadvantage plans. So first, having a large military budget weakens the economy. The economic impact of the Iraq War and higher military models shows that most models show that the military spending diverts resources from productive uses such as consumption and investments, and ultimately slows economic growth and reduces employment. Also, it says that construction and manufacturing are the sectors that are projected to experience the largest shares of job loss. While construction is projected to have a net gain of 8,500 jobs after 5 years, it is projected to lose 144,200 jobs after 10 years and 211,000 jobs after 20 years in the high military spending scenario. Manufacturing is projected to lose 44,000 after 5 years and 95,000 jobs after 10 years, and then 91,000 jobs after 20 years in the high military spending scenario. 2/3 of the projected job loss is in the durable goods sector. It also states that the GDP in 5 years will, in the high military budget scenario, after 5 years the GDP will go up 80 billion, but then after 10 years it will actually go down 13 billion, and then by 15 years it will be down 11 billion, and then down at 20 years it will go down 42 billion. Many people believe that military spending creates jobs. Of course, initially military spending typically creates jobs by creating more demand for goods and services. However, virtually all standard models project that military spending will lead to job loss over the long run. Higher interest rates will also push up the value of the dollar. This will increase demand for imports, since foreign made goods will be cheaper for consumers in the U.S., and decrease demand for exports, since U.S. made goods will be more expensive for people living in other countries. The result will be that the United States will run a larger current account deficit. Over time, this will lead to a larger foreign debit. As was noted in the above discussion, the projections showed that cumulative current amount deficit was close to 1.8 trillion larger in the high military spending scenario than in the baseline scenario. The U.S. is ready for military to lower their budget. A recent New York Times and CBS poll found that if they had to choose, citizens were far more willing to cut defense, about 55% of people, than Medicare or Social Security. Yet Congress continues to resist even minor strict reductions. The U.S. defense budget is posed to shrink in 2013 and beyond, although this won't be the biggest downsides it ever faced. The American Strateger's defense budget charts said that after the Korean War, 43% of the military budget went down. After the Vietnam War, 33% of the military budget was reduced. After the Cold War, 36% of the military budget was reduced. And now, currently, only 31% of the budget will be reduced. And sequestrian or no sequestrian, the 2011 Budget Control Act is expected to rein in the Pentagon's base budget over the next decade. So no matter what, without the sequestrian, the Pentagon wants to limit the military budget anyway. Additional funds doesn't mean that the military is more powerful. The U.S. has 11 carrier strike teams, while no other country has more than one. And an aircraft carrier now costs $15 billion to build, while the Chinese missile designed to destroy the new aircraft only costs around $10 million. So it's kind of a big difference, $15 billion versus $10 million. In How to Save $1 Trillion by Mark Thompson, he states that such cuts would still leave the U.S. military as the world's most potent. It would remain the lone force with global reach, given its logistics, communications, and intelligence dominance. it would still be the only power able to send warships, warplanes, and missiles literally anywhere in the world at any time. Also, the U.S. Navy has not had a real shooting war with any other ships since World War II, so having 11 strike teams doesn't really seem so effective if they haven't even went to battle with any other country. While the U.S. military spending has jumped from $1,500 per capita in 1998 to $2,700 in 2008, its NATO allies have been spending $500 per person over the same span, so other countries do not view military as that important to them. Currently, the U.S. is spending 4.7% of the GDP on military budget, and the U.S. spent more than is spending more than the U.S. spent more on its military than the next 13 nations combined in 2011, so that doesn't seem it's a big jump. The budget calls for $20 billion a year for the nuclear program, and we haven't really had a nuclear war, so having the U.S. have 7,700 nuclear missiles ready to fire doesn't seem to be worth $20 billion a year to maintain. So that doesn't really work. And then the government is funding the high military spending by borrowing money from foreign countries, which points to an almost tragic irony of Washington's $700 billion annual appetite for military stores. We're borrowing cash from China to pay for weapons that are presumably used against it. If the Chinese want to slay us, they don't need to attack us with missiles, they only have to call in on their loans.